I believe if you are convicted of some sort of fraud within, I think it's 10 or 20 years or maybe your entire lifetime, it's an exception to certain objections for discovery in a civil sense. I know, like, you can literally, that issue can be used against you for a significant amount of time, even if you have like a personal injury case.
What do you do as a criminal defense attorney with certain clients when it seems that it's such an uphill battle and they don't feel like they're going to be able to get out of the charge that's been levied against them?
Well, the first thing is you've got to explain everything to the client. You've got to educate them on the system, because I think a lot of times the anxiety comes from not being informed, and I want to inform my clients. I want to educate them that when they get into the case, they understand, and they understand all the strategies.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Only Lawsuits podcast, where we cover lawsuits going on around the country, along with moments in pop culture. Today we have a very, very special guest. You've probably seen billboards of him all around Central Florida. He's a nationally recognized criminal defense attorney, featured on Dr. Phil and multiple local news broadcasts across Florida, Mr. Rajan Joshi.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here. So, to start it off, Rajan, what got you into law?
I always found it fascinating. And to me, being a lawyer was like the best thing I could imagine. You get to go in there, you get to fight, and you get to walk away with your hands clean.
Why criminal law in particular?
Criminal law is an area of law that I found fascinating because it's the one area where you can go in and you can make a difference in someone's life. You can protect them. And the one thing with criminal lawyers is we're the check on the government. We keep the police in line. We're the only check that you have. Because otherwise, the police can just walk into someone's home without a warrant. But when they know they're going to be facing a strong criminal defense lawyer in court, it keeps a check on the system.
Yeah, and so one of the things that I love the fact that you look at it that way, because like I'm a huge American history buff. I'm not saying I'm like super well read on everything, but throughout high school, throughout college, I always loved history, and that was the one thing that kind of drew me into law from the beginning, was keeping the government in check. Now, I obviously do civil law, which is totally different from what Rajan does. But like one of the things I see myself as kind of that guardian from a civil standpoint from people being taken advantage of by like big corporations, right? So like, yeah, I see myself as kind of like that check for insurance companies to not rob my clients, right? But I think it's always interesting in seeing the choices like lawyers choose to go to when it comes to that practice, right? Because like Farah, what makes you draw to one side or the other?
I mean, not necessarily one side or the other, but I always had an interest, I guess, in protecting people, like being able to be an advocate for other people. Like people always say, oh, why don't you stand up for yourself? I'm like, well, my job is standing up for other people. So
Gotcha. All right. Well, I mean, I think a great topic segue that we can go into is the first topic, which is obviously we've all just went through Hurricane Milton, and some of us obviously probably might have went through Helene. I was doing a little bit of research on this topic, and there was an article that was written by PBS, and it basically kind of went through the whole process of what's going on in Florida now when it comes to the hurricane claims process, right? And I think a lot of people need to kind of be aware of the claims process and understand what's going on with the hurricanes, because a lot of people they think, oh, I have homeowners insurance, but they don't understand there's a lot that goes to that. And touching base with the insurance companies right off rip, they need to be careful of certain things. Number one, and this is something that I wanted to actually push into with Rajan, was, have you ever experienced any instance of like insurance, people being charged criminally for insurance fraud?
Absolutely. Multiple times, and what happens is, the insurance companies will, they will dot their I's and cross the T's on every claim. And if they can avoid paying, they will. And if somebody is suspected of committing insurance fraud, they will go and criminally prosecute them. And it's important for the customer to take photographs of their items. And document things, because the insurance companies will come back and they'll say, do you have any documentation? And sometimes, I've seen situations where somebody claims a piece of jewelry was stolen, or was something was damaged, and it turns out that the person ended up selling that item, or is seen later with that item. And so those insurance companies will prosecute, and they will make sure that the state goes after them.
How expensive is a criminal generally? If I were to, let's say I were to, say my guns got lost in a boating accident, or my guns got swiped away by Milton, what would I be looking at to pay for criminal defense for that?
Well, it really depends on what type of criminal defense attorney you want to go with. There's criminal defense attorneys out there who will charge, minimum, but they'll do minimum. If you're looking for, an attorney who's going to go through and hold the government to their burden, and keep a check on the government, it's going to be expensive. It's not worth it to commit the fraud and also go through the stress and the chance of being convicted criminally, especially with a crime that involves dishonesty.
There's a recent controversy going on with insurance companies specifically, where adjusters have come out to people's houses that have been destroyed essentially by Hurricane Helene or Milton, and the insurance companies come back and they are not compensating these homeowners what they deserve. They alter the adjusters, damages to pay out as little as possible to the homeowner. Can the insurance company be held criminally liable for not compensating the homeowner?
If the insurance company is engaged in a pattern of fraud, and that is something that they are, doing on a regular basis, and it is intentional, potentially it could be a racketeering. If it's a pattern of criminal activity used by the insurance company, it'll be hard to prove, and it's a very extreme circumstances. But yes, it could. If they usually, what would happen is the defense would be, this is a contractual dispute. It's not, but if you can prove somehow it was intentional, and they are not, they are basically getting, the money from these insured and not paying it out, then potentially, if that's what the whole scheme of the insurance company is, yes.
Farah, you were talking to me a little bit before this. There was some stuff with like FEMA fraud. What was going on with that?
So I was watching the newscast, just like everyone else was during Hurricane Milton. I was watching the Weather Channel, and they were showing this representative from FEMA saying that people are saying that FEMA is essentially fraud. So if you're trying to apply to FEMA to get hurricane relief, that you're not going to get it if you apply. But it's just not true. There's just a lot of misinformation and rumors regarding that.
Well, I think the reason I wanted to bring that up was there's a really important thing I think people need to be aware that, look, if you are applying for relief from the government of any sort, and we can see this with the PPP fraud stuff that's going on. Mm-hmm. This is one of those instances where you have to be mindful when you sign paperwork to the federal government. They're going to write you a $400 or $500 check or whatever it may be, but you better believe they are going to verify what that money is used for and where it is. And the criminal penalties with that, Rajan, you can touch base more on that. How do you, in your experience, have you seen the federal government get involved for nominal amounts of money, i.e. a few $100, and charge people federally for, lying?
It's unlikely the feds are going to get involved for small amounts. Usually they will defer that over to the state because it's dual jurisdiction. But when it becomes a large scheme, yes, the federal government will get involved, or even the statewide prosecutor will get involved if it is something that aligns with their jurisdiction. So there's multiple jurisdictions that can prosecute these offenses, and it just depends. It really does depend on the sophistication of the crime. It depends on the amount of loss and the amount of people who are involved in this scheme.
That's actually a great segue because it touches upon social media. So a lot of the people that are caught doing PPP fraud and getting relief from the government, they end up sharing a lot of their purchases on social media platforms. And that's what gives the government or prosecutors like the opportunity to go after these people. So as a criminal defense attorney, one of the top criminal defense attorneys, what is your perspective on social media and how impactful is it for clients that you defend?
Oh, social media is huge. I mean, that is the one place where law enforcement is going to go look. I have racketeering cases where my clients are convicted felons and they're shooting guns at a gun range on Instagram. And
oh my God.
And you have these people selling stolen items on social media, and right there, what they're doing is they're basically incriminating themselves.
Facebook Marketplace, Mike.
Exactly. I got a call on that today. In fact, yeah.
Oh my
gosh. But the other thing is the social media works both ways, because you better bet when a victim is making allegations, I am going to go on their social media. You better bet when a witness is saying something against my client, I'm going to find out everything I can about them through social media and use my resources at my office to find out. So social media works for the prosecution, for law enforcement, but it also works for the defense. And you can catch people lying. Somebody saying that they're injured by my client. It's an aggravated battery. But then you have videotapes of them at the gym or hanging out, surfing or something like that. That just goes to the extent of, are they really injured and their credibility.
Yeah, and we do, and even as civil lawyers, we do the same thing. I mean, there's
personal injury stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of instances where, our clients have been in a deposition and literally been confronted with, oh, you're saying you have a back injury or a neck injury. Well, why are you riding this roller coaster? And, I've dealt with those issues. As one of the biggest things that I do in my context is I'll say, listen, all you have to really establish is, yes, you are injured. If your medical records and stuff indicate that, that's fine. Does it look bad for you to go and have kids jumping on your back when you're back injured? Yes. How am I going to convince a jury to give you a shit ton of money when clearly you have you're messing up your own back in addition to your injury? But the other part of it is, look, at the same time, I always try to, explain to people, just because you were injured does not mean that your life is ruined, right? But the key point between both Rajan and me is you have to always relate to your client. How will this look to a jury? Because at the end of the day, the jury is going to be a jury of your peers, right? And in both civil and criminal cases, we use juries.
And it seems like nowadays people are using social media, as a way to really get attention. And the way to get attention is to be a little bit more extreme. And so they do go to the extremes, not thinking about their, lawsuit, or not thinking about the criminal ramifications of, them being, investigated by law enforcement, or law enforcement could go on this, or you may have, a criminal defense law firm looking at, what you're claiming and stuff. So a lot of people do not have that foresight.
Gotcha. So I guess that leads right into the next topic, which I'm gonna show everyone a quick little video of it. But basically, you guys heard of this trend on TikTok? It was about, I guess kids are going around and, I guess going and writing checks to themselves and committing bank fraud. I'll play the video and we could probably listen to it.
Viral TikTok trend may be encouraging people to commit check fraud. Videos posted to the TikTok platform shows people depositing checks made out to themselves for large sums of money. Then they withdraw as much as they can without exceeding that sum, leading them to believe that they tricked the system. But Chase calls it a form of criminal check fraud and warns people not to try it. Many banks allow check depositors to access a portion of their funds before the check actually clears. Experts say when it comes to bank glitches, it's not your money, and when the bank figures it out, they'll want it back.
So this was a huge thing that I kind of really thought of, because not only do people fraud clearly commit fraud on themselves, there's people out there that commit check fraud, right? And we as a law firm, I don't know if you were working with us at that time, Farah. Remember when we wrote like a $5 check and we put it in the mailbox and someone literally
was it the 25,000 one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So someone literally took a $5 check and washed it for $25,000. Oh. And they basically, when we saw the scan of it, like when Truist reached out to us, we were like, how did you guys even allow this shit, right? But this is right when SunTrust was transitioning to Truist. Mm-hmm. So there was a time period where you can deposit, if you deposited cash and a check with cash in the ATM, it would release the full amount of the deposit. So they deposited this bullshit check that they literally scribbled with crayon, it looked like, for $25,000. And they opened the money, and the next day they tried to pull the money out or wire it out. So, literally we flip shit because we were like, yo, we're a business. Number one, we have money that Rajan knows how trust accounting works for lawyers. They monitor the shit out of it. Thank God it wasn't our trust account. It was our operating, but even worse, that's my money, So, but Rajan, what do you see? Obviously this TikTok trend, if a case like that were to walk into your office, what do you do?
Well, the one thing, if I was presented with that case, I would, advocate whether or not they can prove that my client knew that the check didn't have sufficient funds. Did they write the check? There's got to be knowledge. There's got to be a criminal intent behind it. And just because my client, tried to deposit a check that was, a bogus check, doesn't mean my client did anything wrong.
Well, now, I think the other aspect is, look, now TikTok is allowing this shit to get out there, right?
Well, the scary thing is that you're combining viral trend with check fraud. That
with criminal.
It's crazy that that check fraud, bank fraud has become a viral trend on social media.
If I was the attorney, the jury would never hear about the TikTok situation. It would just be my client. Can you prove my client? But yeah, it's crazy because these people are now facing potential federal charges. Bank fraud carries up to 30 years. If they can. Present any wire fraud, that also carries up to 20 years. And, the guidelines in federal court are huge if the feds decide to come after it. And, it does, once the person is prosecuted, it can go state or federal or both.
And I believe there's a rule of evidence that states, I know for civil, and you might be able to clarify more if you know, I believe if you are convicted of some sort of fraud within, I think it's 10 or 20 years or maybe your entire lifetime, it's an exception to certain objections for discovery in a civil sense. I know you can literally, that issue can be used against you for a significant amount of time, even if you have a personal injury case, because I know there's certain discovery questions. They'll say, please admit whether or not you've ever been committed of fraud or lying or perjury, because those are exclusive exceptions to certain evidence rules to where the other side can go in front of the jury and say, yeah, this guy is a known liar or a known fraudster. And that's the craziest shit, right? So I mean, I remember the movie Catch Me If You Can. Catch
Me If You Can. I love that movie, man. Great
so
movie. Frank Abagnale.
He actually did take the bar.
And he passed it.
Yeah.
And he passed
so they were
it.
because they kept trying to ask him, like, how did you do this? You were able to forge all these other documents. How were you able to forge your California bar passage? And he's like, no, I actually studied and I took it. And I passed.
Yeah. But I mean, hey, look, some of these TikTok kids could probably, take the bar and defend themselves. Chat GPT, baby.
I think that guy was an exception. That's why the FBI used him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know about, federal criminal anything really. I literally sometimes get involved in certain federal cases just because I represent people that for auto accidents in jail. So like literally I've had to go to federal prison and it's the scariest shit in the world. Like sometimes, and this is me just thinking just out of the box sometimes, but I'm like, I wonder if they'll ever like try to just keep me in because I'm, not white or whatever. But
Well, Rajan, you're somebody that, has maintained a really consistent passion for criminal defense, and you visit, your clients like all over. And what do you do as a criminal defense attorney with certain clients when it seems that it's such an uphill battle and they don't feel like they're going to be able to get out of the charge that's been levied against them?
Well, the first thing is you've got to explain everything to the client. You've got to educate them on the system, because I think a lot of times the anxiety comes from not being informed, and I want to inform my clients. I want to educate them that when they get into the case, they understand, and they understand all the strategies. Because even if it's a slam dunk case, and I've had cases that look like slam dunks, and I've got the client out of it. I found something, so I want to give them that hope, because there's always hope. If you have an attorney who's going to fight for you, there's a good chance that the outcome is not going to be as bad as it could be otherwise. There's always that chance. And the great thing about criminal defense is there's no black or white. It's not like somebody's getting deported. Either they get deported or they don't. There's a lot of gray. Somebody could be arrested for first-degree murder and charged with it. You can get them down to manslaughter, or you can get them down to some other, lesser charge if you advocate for them properly. And if I'm going to advocate for somebody, I'm going to do it from a position of strength. I'm going to tear down the government's case as much as possible and then go to them and, then negotiate. If we're not going to fight, we're going to negotiate, and we're going to negotiate from a position of strength if they're not going to drop the case. And I let the clients know that, and I go through it and I listen to them, because sometimes attorneys think they know everything, but the clients can educate their attorney because they were there and they know the case better than, what is on the paper. And sometimes I've talked to my clients and I've gotten them not guilty on a case which looked slam dunk. So there's so much that can be done, and I let them know that. And I'm very, honest and frank with them. I let them know if it looks good or if it looks, like we have challenges. But I never let them feel like it's hopeless, because it never is.
Yeah, and that's important to have a passion for kind of what you do. That's one of the reasons why. Look, we don't really handle criminal cases. I've handled them in the past. I don't care to handle them. But what we will do is we'll work with people like Rajan and send them to competent lawyers, because the one thing I want to make sure I do is when someone reaches out to me, and it could be my staff member's family, it can be my own family, whoever it is, whenever they reach out to me, I try to point them in the direction that I would want to be pointed in, right? So like, if I get arrested, I'm probably going to call Rajan and say, yo, get me out. So, or if they don't let me out of federal prison during my auto accident case, I'm just going to tell Rajan to get me out.
I'm curious to why you would be in federal prison.
Just representing people for auto accidents.
He feels like if he walks into prison, they're not going to let him out.
Yeah, it's the skin color thing, dude. It's ingrained in me. No, I'm just kidding. But so speaking of federal prison, we have the most common topic on our show as of right now is
we're not. It's going to be a major topic until maybe the end of next year, depending on how it goes for him. But Diddy.
Farah, update us on Diddy. What's up?
Update us on the case.
It's not going to go away until all of the rights to all the movie rights and all the TV show rights are going to go through, because those are going to keep coming out for a couple of years too.
What's the latest on Diddy?
There's just a lot going on. I will actually know. I just saw Tubi released something that they were going to put to start broadcasting his trial.
Are they really?
Yeah,
On TV?
I think so.
Oh, that's rare in federal court.
Yeah,
Almost unheard of.
Yeah,
I saw an ad for it, so maybe it's still in the works. Like, I haven't actually decided yet, but
so like how obviously, Rajan, we've talked about the civil aspects. Like, there's been civil suits brought galore about this thing, and I think there's some lawyers out of Texas that they filed like over 100 civil lawsuits. But talk to me about, you know, what do you think about what's going on with Diddy? Like, do you think the government, obviously, from what I've seen, like, and I analyze from a civil standpoint, the evidence looks horrible, right? He had literally videos of these quote unquote freak offs. He had 1,000 bottles of lube
and baby oil.
Let's
not forget the baby oil.
What can he do? Like, what's the, like, I don't even know what. If I were a criminal defense attorney, when I see that, I'm just like, shit, this is a slippery situation, you know?
Literally.
Well,
oh God.
I mean, you know, the defense attorney is, you know, they're stuck with what they have as far as the evidence is concerned. But you got to attack the evidence. You know, what they're trying to do is try and say that he's using his record company, you know, for racketeering and for sex trafficking and stuff. And the way to kind of get around that is, you know, attack the credibility of the accusers. Okay, yes, this is an orgy. This is, you know, but try to make it into a sense that everybody was doing this consensually. You know, it wasn't something that was being used by a threat force. And, you know, how come now everybody's jumping on the bandwagon to, you know, go to their authorities and at the same time be asking for $100 million or whatever in damages and stuff like that, all the lawsuits. So you want to attack their credibility. You want to try and make it look like it was consensual as much as you possibly can on this amount of evidence. But then you also want to see what type of bias they have. You know, if they have anything against P. Diddy. Did he, you know, terminate somebody's employment?
It's interesting.
Did they, you know, what financial motive do they have and stuff? And, you know, and then you want to look at the inconsistent statements, the statements they made to law enforcement. When a witness takes that witness stand and they make a inconsistent statement, I am going to attack them. I'm going to pounce on them like, you know, like I'm
but I feel for you more than anything, because like there's always that balance, right? Like, and we in civil, like during my jury trials, the trials that we've dealt with, right? We've got to deal with balancing that. Like, you can't be too aggressive because it's hard to go and say, you know, look, I'm going to beat the shit out of this mom. You know what I'm saying? And they try to paint this narrative of this witness that we all know is false, right? But it's that balance. And that's the crazy thing about us as attorneys and even working in the law field. We've got to always find that professional balance between and interacting with an opposing opponent. You see what I'm saying?
His mom also released a statement saying that she was really disappointed in the entire entertainment industry for turning their back on him when he's helped so many people's careers, and just basically, you know, calling them all liars. What?
Co-conspirators.
Now, what I said, you know, take that with a grain of salt. You know, I'm coming from a criminal defense standpoint, but he does have a lot of evidence, and the federal government would not take a case like this if they didn't think they had a good chance of winning. You know, especially a high publicity case, an election year. You know, that's it's something that, you know, they have dotted their I's and crossed their T's on.
And no matter what, look, even if he is, you know, the lube king, he deserves
the face of baby oil.
The face of baby oil.
Oh, dude, imagine if he was like the little baby.
Just
Diddy. Someone needs to meme Diddy's face as the little baby.
Like on a Gerber baby.
Yes.
Baby.
Yes. Yes. Let's do that, Josh.
Okay.
Trademark that shit. No. But no, like still, he needs to have competent defense. Like, even if you did the shit, clearly he's got some issues. Maybe, you know, maybe there's underlying issues at play, you know, whether maybe he was molested as a kid. Maybe you go into that whole Menendez brothers analysis of maybe there's some underlying issues that did cause him to do this. Maybe he shouldn't be penalized the way he does. And like, that's the importance of having a good criminal defense attorney and people like Rajan that advocate the way they do. Because look, like I said, if he walked in my door, I would have been like, you know, you better slip and slide on out of here. Put a slip and slide in there.
Pun
But
intended.
he could write you a good check, and I'm sure it's
I
not
would
going
have
to.
not
taken
gonna
that
bounce.
check, buddy.
Now, from to circle back to social media, from a defense standpoint, how difficult would it be to deal with that situation? Because he's still active on social media. I just saw yesterday that he posted a post for his daughter's birthday.
Yeah. A
Or
happy
I don't know
birthday
if that
post,
was his team, but it says it's from his specific personal account, and he's the one posting. How do you deal with that?
That is a very difficult, situation when you have a client that you can't control on social media. You've got to have that come to Jesus talk and explain to them that, everything you're doing is being scrutinized. Maybe not, even if it's not to the extent of what P. Diddy, the whole world's looking at him, just in general. And client control is something that a good attorney has got to manage, because if you don't, your client can be, their worst enemy. And it's up to the defense attorney to protect the client a lot of times against themselves. One of the biggest issues we run into is when somebody's in jail and they like to use the telephone. And they like to talk on the phone, and they like to explain that, what happened to their family. And those phone calls are crystal clear, and the prosecutors are listening to every single phone call. Mm-hmm. They have a team that just listens to the phone calls. And, most of my clients listen to me, but some don't. And that becomes a problem. And so, it is a matter of trying to protect the client from themselves. But in that situation, it's hard because P. Diddy is, he is a little bit of a narcissist. Mm-hmm. I'm saying that gently. So, he's not going to, he's not going to listen to somebody telling him how to, run his life. And, he's gotten himself in some deep waters just with his, arrogance. And I think that can be the prosecutor's best weapon against him is himself.
Yeah.
What did you think of his apology video?
I think that's that's going to be used against him,
yeah.
And it's going to be something that he's admitting to certain of the allegations that go into their theory, mm-hmm. which was just a horrible situation. He's already, this is the one where he was caught on video involving the
Cassie Ventura beating his girlfriend.
And that's part of their allegations is he's using threat, intimidation to force people to abide by his, whatever sexual deviant conduct is and stuff. And, that doesn't play well for him.
Yeah. And it helps bolster the credibility of anyone else coming out.
That's a good question because that's something that we focused on a previous episode. Mm-hmm. Did settling with Cassie open up Pandora's box essentially?
Possibly for multiple other lawsuits, but from a criminal standpoint, I want them suing my client. I want them coming after him and trying to get money because then when they take the stand, I'm going to say you have a financial motive. You how much are you suing him for? $100 million, and then I argue to the jury. Their testimony was purchased with the greatest currency known to man. $100 million. How can and so
you want to analyze like different legal aspects and mindsets, right? Like
strategy.
The way that I would approach if I was representing, a party suing Diddy for money, I would say, how much is my client's virginity worth?
Oh God.
But you can see the dynamic and the reason why you want to have a someone that's trained in criminal versus civil. Like, while there's a lot of criminal civil cases that, both attorneys could probably handle, it's better to go to someone that knows how to do that because the mindset's different. And
we thought about it very differently.
I never would have thought about it that way.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So interesting. It's interesting. But awesome. I think this has been a great podcast episode. Look, Rajan, I appreciate you coming out. And,
thank you for having me.
We at Kraken Law Group love working with Rajan and his law firm.
Likewise.
Rajan, what's the name of your firm so everyone knows?
It's Joshi Law.
All right. And then you're on TikTok, Instagram, and all these other social medias. We're going to make sure we get that out there for you.
And you know what? I wanted to ask one final question, to kind of wrap it up. So like you're known as the fit lawyer, right? Fitness is a huge focus of your life. And I feel that you use that motivation, to fitness in defense of giving you more motivation to maybe even defend like your clients? Like, why is fitness so important to you? Because from previous conversations that I've had with you, fitness has been a huge part of your life.
And we worked out together.
And we worked out together, right? So it's been a huge part of your life since you were young. And how has that translated into into your career?
I've been working out since I was 12, and I'm now 50. The discipline I got from working out, from eating, I don't drink alcohol, don't have any tobacco, don't eat any sugar, no junk food, I prep my meals. That level of discipline, that work ethic has helped me tremendously as a lawyer, because I use the same work ethic when I'm preparing for a case. I will cut out all distractions. I will put 110% into my client's case. I almost become like obsessive compulsive about the case, the same way I am. I wake up at 4 in the morning, 3:30, go to the gym, and just pack my meals, and it's a lifestyle. So that type of discipline has translated in everything I've done, whether it be law school, whether it be just personal discipline and stuff. So it's been very helpful and stuff, and I enjoy working out with you as well. We had a good time,
folks. He's a monster in the gym. He's a monster in the gym.
Isn't your tagline "Fit for your defense"?
Fit for your defense.
It is.
Yeah, I'm the unfit lawyer.
No, hey, look, man, you lost a tremendous amount of weight.
A lot, yeah.
Surgery, baby.
You look amazing.
Surgery, baby.
Yeah.
Listen, the one thing that I did, and like, look, I look at people like Rajan, and I genuinely am super impressed, because to have that level of commitment in balancing law, practicing your own practice, running your own practice, doing everything like. When Rajan's going into the gym and doing that at 4 a.m, I'm kind of the opposite, where I'm in the office. But the downside to me is I don't have that. I never had that when I was at that weight. I was almost 400 pounds, and I just couldn't get myself. The one thing I was really good at was coming to work and doing what I do, right? So I went there and went to work, and my biggest problem was I got to a point where I was so heavy that it wasn't impacting me really, but it was. I just didn't know
the stress. It affects your health.
But now after, I had a gastric sleeve surgery in April, and I'm down to 260, 250 from 400 pounds to 260-ish, man. I can run again. I can, I'm about to have a baby in 2 weeks, and literally
congratulations.
I know. Congratulations.
So I see exactly what you're saying. But I've been doing the stuff like walking and just getting out there again and active. The mindset you get from fitness and from getting out there and being physically active, it relates to your work product. And that's what I'm saying. When I see your videos and your little motivational stuff, I'm like, maybe I might go to the gym. But
I'll tell you what, there have been a few nights, late night editing sessions. I'm not going to bed until about that time, 4 a.m. And then I will go across my social feed, and it'll be like, oh, folks, I'm at the gym tonight. And I'm like, damn, dude, I'm going to work out today, but definitely not now. I got to catch some Z's. But Rajan, man, thank you so much for your time. We really, really appreciate you. That's a wrap for another episode of the Only Lawsuits podcast. If you have any comments, leave some suggestions about what you'd like us to cover next. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time.